Everyone, Scott here. So before we get into today's video, make sure you jump into the description and go check out all the details for our upcoming Advanced Conversational Hypnosis program. This is a 3-day program. All the details are below. Click on that link. Enrollments are filling very, very fast, guys. This will be our first training for 2023. I look forward to seeing you there. So one of the things to look for, guys, once your client's had a quote-unquote transformation, I think it's important for us to define what I mean by transformation, okay? So here's what happens. You know that when you take a client through your therapeutic process, NLP hypnosis doesn't really matter. There's a little bit of afterglow from that transformation. There's a little bit of hype around it. It's just the experience of going into trance and having those suggestions or having the visualization, untying the knots, whatever type of therapy that you have. And the outcome is your client will give you a response on how they're feeling and how their life looks, usually based on what I call the hype of the session. And what's important, I think, for any good therapist is to really ignore what happens directly afterwards. Now, what do I mean by this? This seems crazy. So in our ACA training, we talk a lot about testing and processing. Now, processing and testing really comes down to the same thing. It's allowing the unconscious mind that is now it's been open and sort of let go of all those issues to find new connections, to find new behaviors, new thoughts, new this, new that. I call it like the unconscious mind trying on a good suit. It'll find the right jacket, the right tie, the right pants, the right shoes. It won't always get it right. There'll be different mixtures, some with different colors, different materials. It's just a way to explain that processing, okay? So what I'm talking about here is once your client comes out of trance and they say, wow, it seems like my whole life has changed or this, that, and the other, take that as this is just the start of good things to happen. This is just the hype of the session. So I see a lot of people say to me, you know, Scott, I can work with people after 1 or 2 sessions and they tell me their life has changed. That's the hype of the session. You've got to be very, very aware. That doesn't mean that's the place they're going to land, as in that's not going to be the total end result. So what I mean by this, and again, I'll give you more examples to explain this point. It's quite an advanced thing to talk about now without seeing a demo of this. But so when my clients would say to me, like my lawyers would say to me at the end, hey, you know, do the stop smoking session, even though that's just a symptom. They come out, they have this transformation, they have this really bizarre and weird experience. They come out the other end and say, wow, I feel incredible. Don't feel like I'm going to have a cigarette. That's a good thing. They basically told me they're not going to do the thing that they came in for. The symptom is gone. But I also let them know that this is just the start of it. Because I'm not going to take what they tell me now as their all and end all. I know if I do a good enough job, what happens 3 days later, 5 days later, 10 days later, that's the result I want them to document. That's the result I want them to look forward to. That's the result that I want to hear about. So you've got to be very, very careful when your client comes out of trance and says, wow, it feels like my whole life has changed. That's just the hype of the session. It's like the afterglow of them just having a relaxing experience. Because what can happen is they come out of this, you've assumed or they've told you that, yes, my life is going to change. I don't have X, Y, and Z now. Then a couple of days later, they call you back and say, hey, it's all gone back to the same thing or it's got worse. Nothing's changed. That's because that afterglow has died down. So having a good processing chat and letting your client know this is the way the mind works at the end. This is the processing. This is what to look forward to. This is what you experience, the emotion. We call this a processing chat. If you want to learn how to do that, guys, I'm just trying to think of the course that we have. We've got a couple of courses on Udemy called Advanced Conversational Hypnosis Processing Chat. I believe it's cost like $12 or something like that. That explains this part right here. And I know no other therapist gets taught this because they're always quite surprised when we do teach it that no one knew this stuff, okay? But it's so freaking important, okay? So be aware of the afterglow of the session. Be aware that, sure, hypnotherapy, coaching, NLP can change somebody's life, but be aware the life-changing part happens later. The life-changing part happens with the processing. So just be aware because they're excited about where their life is going straight after a session. Realize that's the afterglow. You've got to wait for all that to die down for the mind to sort of go back to homeostasis. Then see where they go and see where they land to make that assessment. Hopefully that makes sense, guys. And that's one surefire way to know if your clients are getting the real good transformation or real root cause transformation, or it's just the afterglow of the session. If it's just the afterglow and you're assessing the success of your session on the afterglow, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get that phone call saying it hasn't worked. I want my money back. I need another session, need a session, because you're tracking the wrong things. Okay. Hopefully that helps, guys.